Sony Xperia 10 III review. But before we start, please support us by pressing the like and subscribe buttons, so that we can continue to provide the latest information about gadgets and technology. Also turn on the bell button to get the latest updates. Your support means a lot to us. Thank you. You don't make drastic changes to a working formula, right? Well, we don't have the numbers to say just how successful the Xperia 10 II was, but it must have been very, since Sony hasn't altered too much on the Xperia 10 III we have for you today. The few areas that have been improved are important, of course. While not a powerhouse in isolation, the Snapdragon 690 inside the new model is vastly more powerful and at least a little more competitive against the rivals of the day. 5G support is also now part of the package, thanks to the new chipset. A significant increase in battery capacity to 4,500 mAh, from 3,600 mAh last year, is another most welcome development. That comes with some added heft, but at 169 grams, the MK3 remains one of the more easily pocketable handsets. Less tangible changes include a bump in RAM to 6GB, previously 4GB, and the now added HDR support on the otherwise apparently identical 6-inch OLED display. Sadly, it's still a 60Hz panel, and these are hardly fashionable, regardless of market position. Of the things that have been carried over that still deserve a mention, the most important is the IP65/68 rating for dust and water protection, a rarity in the mid-range that really sets the Xperia 10 III apart. The Gorilla Glass 6 sandwich is also hardly a given for the price. Here's a rundown of the key specs. Sony Xperia 10 III specs at a glance. Body, 154.0 by 68.0 by 8. 3mm, 169 grams, glass front, Gorilla Glass 6, glass back, Gorilla Glass 6, plastic frame, IP65 IP68 dust/water resistant, up to 1.5 meters for 30 minutes. Display, 6.0 inches OLED, HDR, 1080 by 2520px resolution, 21:9 aspect ratio, 457p, triluminous display. Chipset, Qualcomm SM6350 Snapdragon 695G, 8nm, octa-core, 2x2. 0 GHz Creo 560 gold and 6x1. 7 GHz Creo 560 silver, Adreno 619. Memory, 128 GB 6 GB RAM, UFS, microSD-XE, uses shared SIM slot. OS/software, Android 11. Rear camera, wide, main, 12MP, f/1.8, 27mm, 1/2.8, PAF, ultra wide angle, 8MP, f/2.2, 120, 16mm, 1/4.0, telephoto, 8MP, f/2.4, 54mm, 1/4.0, PAF, 2x optical zoom. Front camera, 8MP, f/2.0, 24mm, wide, 1/4.0. Video capture, rear camera, 4K at 30 fps, 1080p at 30 fps, front camera, 1080p at 30 fps. Battery, 4500 mAh, fast charging 30 watts, quick charge, USB power delivery. Miscellaneous, fingerprint reader, side mounted, NFC, 3.5mm jack. Sony Xperia 10 III unboxing. We got our Xperia 10 III review unit in the familiar white box Sony has been using for a few years now. There was the bare minimum of accessories inside it, just a charger and a USB cable to go with it. The charger is rated at a lowly 7.5 watts, and that low of a value we haven't seen in a while. The phone does support USB power delivery and will benefit from a higher powered adapter, such as the company's own 30-watt XQZ-UC1 unit, but that's not what came bundled with our review device. Perhaps retail units will be equipped differently. Additionally, Sony has been known to adjust package contents from region to region, so variation by locale may also exist. To sweeten the deal for early birds, Sony is offering a pair of WH-CH710 and noise-canceling headphones for free with Xperia 10 III purchases, with the promo period varying by region. The headphones have an MSRP of €150 but normally retail for around €90, still, a pretty good value we reckon. The overall approach of if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it is nowhere more evident than in the Xperia 10 III's physical appearance. It's what your eyes see and what your fingers touch, and both can be fooled. It's the same phone unless you pay attention. That's just as bad as it is good. We get the principle of continuity and evolution, and brand identity, and all that. The X III is clearly an Xperia, and you can spot that from just a passing glance. Flashy designs from other mid-rangers we've seen recently don't bother much with trying to adhere to a common design language, instead opting to stand out at this very moment, with another, very different looking handset replacing them in a few months. That's not Sony, and we have a certain respect for Sony for it. But the thing is, the MK3 is barely different from the MK2, and it's more than 12 months that split the two. Some slightly bolder strokes could have livened up the looks a bit. That's not to say there aren't changes, even if it may take a while to spot them. The Xperia X III has actually shrunk in footprint compared to the last generation. It's a millimeter narrower and 3 mils shorter, and it's one of few handsets in the mid-range that can pass for compact. That's with the display maintaining its size at 6 inches, effectively meaning that it's the bezels that have been trimmed, one area where Xperias have been prone to attracting criticism. The top bezel is visibly slimmer while maintaining all the functionality of the predecessor. It still houses the selfie camera, so no display cutouts. There are proximity and ambient light sensors, and even an RGB notification LED is still present. The earpiece cutout has been moved off to the edge of the Gorilla Glass 6 panel, but it's still an earpiece only. There's no stereo action going on the X III. Down below the display, the bezel is again thinner than before, though slightly less so than up top. The single front firing speaker gets a wide slit where the glass meets the frame, now protected by what is apparently a metal mesh in place of the finer textile one of the old phone. Another minor change can be spotted along the matte polycarbonate frame, though this one has actual functional implications. It's the inclusion of an extra key on the right. Placed about a third of the way up, flush with the frame's outer edge, it gives you direct access to Google Assistant. The rest of the controls remain unchanged. You get a power button just around the midpoint on the right side with a capacitive fingerprint sensor embedded in it. In contrast to the Google Assistant button, this one is slightly recessed into the frame to help you locate it more easily. That's not necessarily enough to avoid accidental touches, and you may find yourself locked out of fingerprint recognition if you happen to graze the sensor accidentally in the handling of the phone. Other phones with side-mounted sensors let you set them up so that a press is required to engage the unlocking procedure, but we couldn't find such a setting on the Xperia X III. This one is always on and will directly unlock the phone if you touch it with a registered fingertip. The unlocking procedure is straightforward, and we generally didn't have issues with the Xperia X III with either right thumb or left index finger unlocking, though the lefties might score a lower success percentage. The sensor is also a bit temperamental outside of a plain and simple single unlock. Say you just press the power button to lock the phone, but a split second later you decide you want to unlock it again. Well, it may or may not work, and you may need to deliberately move your finger away for that extra bit more time and tap on the sensor again. It's not a huge deal, and you probably don't do 10 repeat unlocks just to feel the speed of the process like we happen to. Above the power button / fingerprint reader combo is the volume rocker, itself unremarkable in its operation. It clicks, volume goes one way or the other. There's no dedicated shutter release button on the Xperia X III, but wasn't on either of the previous generation phones, so it's not a surprise. And, before you ask, there's no way to set the Google Assistant key to act as shutter release, but the volume rocker can do that. On the opposite side of the phone is the card slot. In typical Sony fashion, you can pry out the tray using just your fingernail, no pins needed. The tray can take 2 cards back to back, and those can be 2 nano SIMs or a nano SIM and a micro SD. There's the option for storage expansion, but not if you need 2 SIMs in at the same time. The tray has a high-vis green gasket to ensure the slot is good for the IP65-68 rating, not that's both water jets and submersion covered. Dust too, if flour is your kryptonite. Down below, there's just the USB-C port and a mic pinhole. Up top, you can find another mic pinhole and another port, the 3.5mm headphone jack. We left the back for last because, well, it's essentially the same as on the MK2. It takes some hair splitting to come up with the point that with the fractional increase in overall thickness, the camera cluster now sticks out by fractionally less. This minimalist camera island is, in fact, sort of a feature in 2021, when all sorts of oversized assemblies have been devised to make otherwise mundane setups look more intimidating, particularly on less expensive phones. Could the Xperia X III be a trendsetter by sticking with the old? The rear panel is made of Gorilla Glass 6 too. That's no small feat given that, say, the Galaxy S21's back cover is plastic, and the Galaxy S21 is more than twice as expensive as the X III. Our black MK3 review unit is a different shade than the black of last year's one, a grayer black, if you will. The Sony logo is in a more contrasting color this time, making it pop more, while the Xperia branding has been shrunk a bit. That's about it. The new phone is indeed slightly heavier, 169 grams versus 151 grams. We'd say that while the difference can be felt when someone points it out to you, the Xperia 10 weight isn't enough to push it into what you'd call heavy, and in our minds, it remains a lightweight phone. We'd also dare call it a compact phone, particularly for its market context. That's not all that difficult given that the Xperia's diagonal stands at 6 inches and competitors are in the 6.4 to 6.7 inch ballpark. The perception is further aided by Sony's push for elongated 21:9 displays that 8 slimmer and taller for the same diagonal than competing offers that are typically 20:9. Anyway, this is about as close as you can get to a reasonably sized mid-ranger in 2021.
Thanks for watching. Drop a like, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to watch more videos like this.